We will move into the 11th of June, and I'll start off today with the squadron summaries, and we're getting into a phase here where the more general histories of the activities don't go into a lot of detail. One day becomes much like the other as the beachhead continues to be expanded and consolidated, but one point that I hope that I'm getting across with this series is that even though big operations like D-Day, or notable happenings like yesterday, the first flights out of ALGB-3, those receive a lot of attention and therefore are thoroughly documented, but the day-to-day operation of the wing goes on. There are still missions to fly, and each day is unique. It has its own set of challenges when it comes to enemy opposition, weather, taskings for flying different types of missions. So even though the documentation that I'm working off of gets more and more sparse, and therefore these videos get shorter and shorter, operations still continue as before, and that's a trap that is easy to fall into as a researcher, assuming that less documentation means that less happened. From the point of view of the pilots in the air, the maintainers on the ground, and everybody associated with the operation, I can assure you the days after D-Day were extremely packed. So let's go ahead and get into the squadron summaries with 441 Squadron. Early in the morning, 12 of our aircraft acted as low cover over the eastern assault area, and 2 trains and 1 mobile gun tender were shot up. Flight Lieutenant Mott was credited with destroying one of the locomotives. A similar operation was carried out later in the morning. 442 has for the 11th, the early morning patrol returned before 0830, reporting a quiet trip. The clouds in some places were 10/10ths, even though they went in far enough to see Paris. They saw no enemy aircraft. The second dozen were airborne at 0955, low clouds over France, flak near Caen, close but not hit, no enemy aircraft. In order to avoid the small collections required for chocolates, gum, soft drinks, mechanics tools, extra messing and whiskey, all of which have come up in the past month, it has been decided to start a squadron fund. The initial donation from each officer is to be 10 shillings. The adjutant to keep track of receipts and expenditures. 3 pilots went to Red Hill to pick up 3 Spitfires, released from flying in 1945, total flying hours 54 for the day. And 443, weather cloudy and cool, visibility poor, 8/10ths cloud at 1,000 feet. 12 aircraft took part in a fighter sweep to the Paris area, and southeast of this area, no enemy aircraft seen, 1 engine destroyed on the ground by Pilot Officer Hodgins. Squadron on readiness throughout the day, no further patrols or sorties flown. List prepared of pilots to fly the squadron aircraft and those to go by airlift party on the forthcoming move to France when our airfield has been prepared, and that's coming up, delayed slightly by slower than expected gains on the ground on the 15th. Only 25 pilots are to be carried on squadron strength when the move is made. Ops flying time 33 hours. So I'll start with the first flight of the day that got airborne. That was a fighter sweep by 443 Squadron, getting airborne at the same time as the rest of the wing, who conducted the normal low-cover patrol over the eastern assault area. So I'll cover 443 and what they saw on their sweep first. Weather cloudy and cool, scattered cloud, good visibility. Aircraft dispatched on fighter sweep into Paris area. Intense flak thrown at the red section when they attempted to attack enemy aircraft on an aerodrome. And like I said in the introduction, some of the detail gets a little bit more sparse as we go, owing to, I'm sure, just fatigue from the previous days and also the chaos of the ongoing move to ALGB-3, but I'll give an educated guess on that location here in a second. No enemy aircraft met and no flak opposition. Shot up an engine pulling a small train near Rouen. Flight Officer Hodgins got a direct hit on the boiler. 4 aircraft returned to base, the remaining 8 landed on the beachhead strip to refuel, and then returned to base later at 0930 hours. And you can see that return trip down here, 0855 takeoff with the 0935 landing at RAF Ford. So we had the note of intense flak as aircraft were strafed at an airfield, and I'll pull up the locations that I put together in that other series, showing as best as I could tell Luftwaffe airfields that were active in the area. Now, there was a lot of stuff that would be closer to Paris that was just outside the scope of what I was doing when I was mapping these out, but a good candidate location would be the Evero airfield. That would have been very active at the time, even though the airfield was bombed repeatedly leading up to and subsequent to this time frame. Now we can see from this reconnaissance photo, this was taken on the 6th of July, that the main strip at Evero was damaged beyond use, and we can see these other little green pins around the area. These were dispersal fields for aircraft with just places to park and grass strips to take off and land from. There's Avro 5 out there that was subsequently hit after it was set up. Avro 4 up here, Avro 2 just up here to the north, and like I said, I have no documentation either way, but it's a good guess that if not on this mission, other missions where they note strafing aircraft would have been at these dispersal areas around Avro. This was a very active airfield at the time we're dealing with. It also mentioned shooting up an engine, pulling a small train, and again, it didn't give any specific grid location on that, but you can see the overall situation around Rouen, and we could bet that this would be a popular location to bring supplies in to then go further to the west to keep the troops at Caen supplied. So that at least gives some idea of what it would have looked like. Now we also had the standard patrol going up 0545 to 815. Neptune's squadron was low cover over the eastern assault area. That was 441 in their description. 442 gives us patrol over beachhead, uneventful, no enemy aircraft sighted, cloud 10/10ths. Now we have in the summary for 441 squadron 2 trains, 1 mobile gun tender shot up by Flight Lieutenant Mott down here in the area of Caen, so it wasn't totally uneventful on these patrols. The first patrol returned at 0815. The second patrol goes up at 0945, lands at 1145. So it was just a standard low cover over the eastern assault area. 442 gives us patrol of beachhead, uneventful, no enemy aircraft sighted, flak near Caen, clouds low. Last aircraft down at 11:55, and that wraps up operations for the day, with aircraft remaining on readiness, but no missions flown until the morning of the 12th. So I'm going to pick things up there. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time.